Hello everyone and welcome to my Y&R Trends channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The air in the grand high-ceilinged room, usually so redolent with the scent of old money and new ambitions, seemed to suddenly curdle. It was a space designed for whispered conspiracies over crystal tumblers of amber whiskey, and the subtle, cutting language of corporate warfare, not for the raw, unfiltered explosion of personal vendettas. One moment the tension was a taut, invisible wire humming between them, a familiar dance of veiled insults and unspoken grievances that had characterized their relationship for years. Phyllis, ever the provocateur, had been weaving her particular brand of calculated charm, a performance meant to subtly undermine and manipulate, her words dripping with a faux concern that was as transparent as it was irritating. She was circling a secret, Lily could feel it, a shark scenting blood in the water, and that blood was Kane's and by extension Lily's own. And then something in Lily simply snapped. It wasn't a gradual build but a seismic rupture, a fault line giving way under the immense, accumulated pressure of betrayal, suspicion, and the sheer audacity of Phyllis's presence, her very posture suggesting she held all the cards. The sound was not loud, not in the cavernous room, but it was impossibly sharp, a percussive crack that seemed to freeze the very molecules of the air. Lily's hand, moving with a speed and conviction that bypassed conscious thought, connected with Phyllis's cheek with a force that was both physical and profoundly symbolic. It was not a slap of petty anger, not the hysterical reaction Phyllis might have expected and known how to deflect. No, this was something else entirely, something colder and more terrifying in its certainty. Phyllis's head snapped to the side, a sharp, jerking motion, her perfectly styled hair flying for a moment before settling back into disarray. A stunned silence, thick and heavy, descended upon them. The red imprint of Lily's fingers began to bloom on Phyllis's pale skin, a vivid, accusing brand. Phyllis's hand slowly rose to her stinging cheek, her eyes wide, not yet with pain, but with pure, unadulterated shock. The mask of the cunning strategist had been violently slapped away, leaving behind a raw, exposed woman who, for one fleeting second, had no script, no clever retort. Before Phyllis could even draw a breath to muster outrage or a cutting remark, Lily spoke. Her voice was low, a controlled tremor running through it, but it carried an authority that brooked no interruption. It was the voice of a CEO, a mother, a woman who had been pushed to the very brink of her endurance and had decided to stop retreating. "Don't," she said, the single word a blade of ice. "Don't you dare say another word. Don't you dare stand there and pretend you don't know exactly why that happened. Your games, your schemes, your endless toxic plots, they end now. Right here." Lily's chest heaved, but her gaze was steady, locked onto Phyllis with an intensity that was almost frightening. The physical strike had been the prelude. This was the main event. The slap had been for the personal slights, the constant underhanded attempts to destabilize her family, but the words that followed were for something far greater, a sin that threatened the very foundation of everything Lily held dear. Phyllis, ever the survivor, began to regroup, her shock rapidly morphing into a familiar, defensive fury. "How dare you?" she finally spat, her voice a venomous hiss, the pain in her cheek fueling her indignation. "You've lost your mind, Lily. This is assault. I'll have you in cuffs for this." She took a step forward, a predator reasserting itself, but Lily stood her ground, unmovable as granite. A bitter, mirthless smile touched Lily's lips, a chilling expression that held no warmth, only a profound and weary contempt. "Go ahead, Phyllis. Call the police. Let's have them here. It will make the next part of this conversation so much more interesting. Because while you're filing your report about a slap, I'll be telling them, and anyone else who will listen, all about the conspiracy you and Kane have been brewing in the shadows." The name hung in the air between them, charged and potent. Kane. It was the key that unlocked the true nature of this confrontation. Phyllis's bravado faltered for a microsecond, a flicker of genuine alarm in her eyes before the shutters of calculation slammed back down. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stated, her voice tight, but the denial was weak, a transparent lie that only served to confirm Lily's accusations. "Kane and I aren't conspiring about anything. You're paranoid. He's been trying to move on, to build a life away from the chaos you represent." It was a cheap shot designed to wound, but Lily was beyond such tactics now. She had ascended to a higher plane of conflict, one where the truth was her only weapon, and she was prepared to wield it like a scythe. Move on, Lily echoed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Is that what you call it? What a creative term for fraud, for deception, for a plot so twisted and self-serving that it would make even you blush if you were capable of such a human emotion. You think I haven't seen the pieces? You think I'm still the naive girl you could so easily manipulate? Lily took a step closer, her presence now dominating the space. The slap had been a declaration of war, but this was the laying out of the evidence, the prosecutor before the jury. The mysterious withdrawals, the shell companies that trace back to nothing, and yet smell distinctly of your particular brand of financial perfume. The whispered conversations that always seem to stop the moment I enter a room. And Cain, my Cain. Her voice cracked slightly on the words, a brief glimpse of the personal devastation beneath the steely exterior. Suddenly so secretive, so flush with cash and confidence, yet so brittle, so quick to anger when questioned. He's never been a good liar, not to me. I know every shift in his expression, every tone in his voice. And I know when he's in over his head. Being used as a pawn in a game he's too arrogant to realize he can't win. She was piecing it together aloud, the full picture she had been agonizing over for weeks now becoming terrifyingly clear as she gave it voice. This isn't just about money, is it, Phyllis? Lily continued, her eyes narrowing, seeing through the fragile facade of Phyllis's denials. It's never just about money with you. It's about power. It's about chaos. It's about proving that you're still the smartest person in the room, that you can still pull the strings and make the puppets dance, even the ones who should know better. You saw a wounded, prideful man in Cain, a man who felt he had something to prove after everything that happened between us. You saw a vulnerability and you slithered right into it. You dangled the promise of a big score, of a way to reclaim his status and stick it to me and the company all at once, didn't you? You filled his head with notions of a power play, a masterstroke that would make everyone sit up and take notice. The accuracy of her assessment was a second, more profound blow than the physical one. Phyllis's face tightened, her jaw clenching, a telltale sign that Lily's aim was true. It's a takeover, isn't it? Lily pressed, the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place with a dreadful certainty. Not a hostile one through the stock market, but something quieter, dirtier. You're using Cain's knowledge of Chancellor Winters, his old contacts, his residual access, to orchestrate some kind of internal sabotage. You're planning to bleed the company dry from the inside, to create a crisis so profound that when you and he swoop in with a solution, you'll be able to seize control. Or perhaps it's a fake venture, a sinkhole for investor funds that you two plan to disappear with. Which is it, Phyllis? Are you planning a coup? Or are you just planning to rob everyone blind and leave the wreckage for me to clean up? The sheer scope of the accusation was breathtaking, a plot worthy of the darkest corporate thrillers, yet here in the world of Genoa City, it felt terrifyingly plausible. This was the nature of their battles. They were never just about love or family, but about the vast empires of wealth and influence those emotions were built upon. Phyllis found her voice again, but it was strained, the confidence forced. You have no proof of any of this. It's a fantasy, a story you've concocted, because you can't handle the fact that your ex-husband chose to align himself with me. This is jealousy, plain and simple, dressed up as corporate espionage. She attempted a laugh, but it came out as a dry, hollow rattle. You're going to go public with this? This deranged fantasy? You'll be a laughingstock, Lily. You'll destroy what's left of your credibility, and take Chancellor Winters down with you in a whirlwind of speculation and scandal. Is that what you want? It was a classic Phyllis maneuver, to reframe the exposure of a crime as the crime itself, to make the whistleblower the villain. But Lily was prepared for this. She had already walked through this fire in her mind 100 times. I have more proof than you know, Lily stated, her voice dropping to a deadly calm. Emails recovered from archived servers. Financial transfers that weren't quite as anonymous as you believed. A witness from the offshore bank who was more than happy to talk when presented with certain legal pressures. It's all there, Phyllis. A digital paper trail that leads right to your doorstep and Cain's. I've been building this case quietly, waiting, hoping I was wrong. But this, she gestured vaguely between them, encompassing the charged atmosphere and the fading red mark on Phyllis's face. This little performance of yours today just confirmed everything. Your desperation is showing. You're getting nervous because you know the walls are closing in. This was a bluff, or perhaps it wasn't. The truth was in the unshakable conviction in her eyes. In that moment, it didn't matter what evidence she physically possessed. Her certainty was its own form of proof. The declaration hung in the air. A detonation that had already occurred. The shockwaves only just beginning to spread. Lily's threat to expose the plot was not an idle one. It was a promise. She was prepared to drag the sordid details into the blinding light of day, to lay bare Kane's betrayal and Phyllis's machinations for all of Genoa City to see. It would be messy. It would be painful. It would mean a public humiliation for Kane, the father of her children, a man for whom, despite everything, a part of her would always hold a complicated affection. It would mean a corporate firestorm that could indeed destabilize Chancellor Winters, inviting scrutiny from shareholders and regulators alike. It would mean a war on two fronts. A personal one against the man she once loved, and a professional one against the woman who was a master of corporate warfare. But the alternative, allowing the plot to proceed, allowing them to believe they could get away with it, was unthinkable. The cost of silence was far greater than the cost of truth. Phyllis stood silent, for once truly and utterly at a loss. The sting on her cheek was a minor annoyance compared to the icy dread seeping into her bones. She had been outmaneuvered. Lily was not reacting, she was acting. She was not a piece on the board to be moved. She was the player who had just tipped the board over. The carefully constructed house of cards, built on Kane's connections and her own guile, was trembling, threatening to collapse under the weight of Lily's resolve. In that moment, Phyllis understood that this was not just another skirmish in their long-running feud. This was an endgame. Lily had drawn a line in the sand, not with a whisper, but with the crack of her hand and an unwavering vow to speak a terrible truth. The next move was no longer hers or Kane's to make. The next move, and all the devastating moves that would follow, now belonged to Lily. The silence in the room was no longer stunned. It was anticipatory, heavy with the promise of a coming storm that would leave no one untouched. Lily stood in the middle of crimson lights, her fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee cup, her knuckles white as she replayed the shocking discovery that had just shattered everything she thought she knew. Kane had lied again. But this time it wasn't a small lie to protect someone, or to cover up an embarrassing mistake. This was darker, manipulative, and deeply personal. He had been scheming behind her back, pulling strings that put lives and reputations at risk. And the person who had helped her uncover the truth, Phyllis, was standing right in front of her, smirking that infuriating smirk that always made Lily's blood boil. Phyllis didn't seem surprised by Lily's rage. In fact, she seemed to revel in it, her voice calm and cutting as she said, "You see, Lily? I told you Kane wasn't the man you thought he was. But you never listen until the damage is done." Lily's chest rose and fell rapidly, anger mixing with heartbreak in a storm that threatened to explode. She couldn't believe how easily Phyllis was throwing around the truth, twisting it into a weapon for her own amusement. Yes, Kane had been deceitful. Yes, Phyllis had given her the evidence. But Phyllis wasn't doing this out of kindness. She wanted chaos, and Lily knew it. The cafe seemed to fade around her, conversations turning into muffled echoes. Her mind was on fire, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear herself think. Phyllis leaned in, her tone laced with that trademark condescension. "You should thank me, really. I saved you from another Kane Ashby disaster. Though honestly, Lily, how many times does a woman have to get burned before she learns to stop playing with fire?" That was it. Something inside Lily snapped. The sting of betrayal, the humiliation of being made a fool, and the sheer audacity of Phyllis's smug expression, all of it collided in one unbearable flash. Without thinking, Lily's hand flew across Phyllis's face with a sharp, resounding slap that silenced the entire room. The sound echoed, cutting through the cafe like a whip. Gasps rippled through the patrons, heads turning as Phyllis stumbled back, her hand flying to her cheek, eyes wide with shock. For a brief moment, even Phyllis, ever the queen of control, looked genuinely stunned. The fiery redhead blinked, her lips parting as she processed what had just happened. Lily's hand trembled in the air before she lowered it, her breath coming in short bursts. "You don't get to stand there and act like this is some kind of game," Lily hissed, her voice shaking but strong. "You don't get to use my life as your next round of entertainment." Phyllis's expression hardened, the sting of the slap quickly replaced by that dangerous gleam of defiance. "Oh please," she spat back. "Don't turn this on me. I didn't make Kane lie to you. He did that all on his own. I just made sure you saw the truth for once in your life." Her tone was sharp, but underneath there was a flicker of something, pain perhaps or guilt, that she quickly buried. Lily, however, wasn't interested in playing verbal games anymore. The slap had unleashed something she had been holding in for too long. The exhaustion of being betrayed, the frustration of being underestimated, and the fury of seeing people manipulate each other like pawns. "You think I don't know that?" Lily snapped. "You think I didn't already start to see it? But you didn't tell me out of decency, Phyllis. You told me because you wanted to watch me break." Phyllis opened her mouth to respond, but Lily didn't let her. "You've done this to everyone," Lily continued, tears beginning to form in her eyes though she refused to let them fall. "Nick, Jack, Billy. Everyone you touch ends up paying the price for your need to stir things up. Well, not this time. I'm done letting people like you and Kane manipulate everything around me." Her voice rose firm and fierce, cutting through the stunned silence of the room. People were whispering now, phones subtly being raised to record, but Lily didn't care. She had been quiet for too long, playing the composed woman, the peacemaker. Not today. Today she was done being calm. Phyllis's lips curled into a half-smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You think you're better than me, Lily?" she said softly, her tone mocking but tinged with something brittle. "You think because you work in a nice office and play by the rules you're untouchable? Newsflash, this is Genoa City. Everyone's got dirt under their nails. Even you." Lily didn't flinch. "Maybe," she said quietly, "but at least I'm not proud of it." Her voice wavered, but the conviction behind it was steady. Then she took a deep breath and said something that made Phyllis's expression falter. "You're right about one thing. Kane lied, and I'm not covering for him anymore. If he wants to play dirty, then I'll make sure everyone knows what he's really done." That declaration sent a ripple through the room, even through Phyllis herself. For the first time the redhead seemed uncertain, caught between satisfaction and concern. "What are you saying, Lily?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Lily straightened her shoulders, her tone icy and resolute. "I'm saying I'm done protecting Kane Ashby. I'm going to expose his entire plot, the lies, the manipulation, all of it. And if that means destroying what's left of our marriage, then so be it. He made that choice when he decided to play me like a fool." Phyllis blinked, clearly trying to gauge how serious she was. But Lily wasn't bluffing. She was done being the forgiving wife. She was done cleaning up other people's messes. As Lily turned to leave, Phyllis grabbed her wrist. "Lily, wait. You don't understand. If you go public with this, Kane's not the only one who's going to get burned. There are others involved. This goes deeper than you think." Lily yanked her arm free, glaring at Phyllis. "Then maybe it's about time they all face the consequences," she said coldly. Phyllis opened her mouth again, but Lily was already walking toward the door, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Every step was a statement, an act of defiance, of liberation. She could feel every eye in the room on her, but she didn't care. The slap, the confrontation, it had all been building for weeks, maybe months. And now, for the first time in a long time, she felt powerful. Not because she had hurt Phyllis, but because she had finally stopped letting fear and deception control her. Outside, the crisp air hit her face, cooling the heat still burning in her veins. She took a deep breath, her thoughts racing. Expose Kane. The words echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming her own dignity. She thought about the files she'd found, the secret accounts, the strange meetings, the messages he thought she'd never see. Kane's charm had fooled her once, but the mask was gone now. Every lie he'd told, every manipulation, every promise he'd broken, it was all going to come to light. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through the evidence she'd gathered, her heart aching but her resolve unwavering. If she had to burn bridges to find peace, so be it. Back inside, Phyllis stood frozen for a moment, her cheek still stinging from the slap, her pride bruised more than her skin. Slowly, she turned toward the counter, ignoring the whispers around her. "What are you all staring at?" she snapped, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. The crowd quickly dispersed, pretending to return to their coffee, but the gossip had already begun. Phyllis sighed, rubbing her temple.